All right, welcome back everybody. Mr. Hurley here. In today's video, I want to talk about comic books. And in particular, I want to talk about comic book collecting for the beginners. Okay? So if you're interested in getting involved in comic books and the hobby, this would be a great video for you. I'm going to talk about 3 important things you need to know about before you start your comic book collection, okay? Or maybe you already have a comic book collection, but you would like to learn more about it, okay? So what I want to cover in this video is the different eras of comic books, okay? The different eras of comic books, the different time periods of when comic books have been created and printed, all right? I also want to talk about what are the things that can make a comic book valuable. What are you looking for when you're buying a comic book or when you're collecting comic books? What kind of things are you looking for in order to find a valuable comic book? Okay, and what makes comic books valuable? All right, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about how to begin your own comic book collection. Okay? So let's go ahead and start with the different eras of comic books. There are 4, okay? There's the gold era, okay? That's when comic books started. Those are super old comic books and super valuable. I do not have any gold era comic books. Wish I did. I might still try to get some, but as of now, I do not have any gold era comic books. The next era is the silver era of comic books, and I do have quite a few of those. I usually only collect the silver era of comic books. You can see 2 right here, Adventure Comics and Amazing Spider-Man. Okay? To tell if your comic book is a silver era comic, which is basically the 1960s, okay? Silver era comic books were made and printed in the 1960s. To determine that, they usually have a 12-cent price tag on the comic book, okay? So this DC Adventure Comics was 12 cents. Once you see that, you know that it is a silver era comic book, okay? Same with this Amazing Spider-Man, okay? The price, well, this one was 15 cents, okay? So either 12 cents or 15 cents. If your comic book is priced either 12 cents or 15 cents, you know it's a silver era comic, okay? The next era of comics is called the Bronze Age, and that goes from 1970 to 1985, and I have a few of those as well. Let me show you a couple. Okay. Teen Titans. This would be considered a Bronze Age comic. Okay. Now these are pretty affordable. Okay. Bronze Age comics are still pretty affordable. And then we have modern era comics. Now those are the comics that you could buy in the stores today. Deadpool, all kinds of other comics. They still make Spider-Man, Superman, okay, X-Men. All those comics can still be bought today in stores off of racks, and those are considered modern era comics. Okay, so we've talked about the gold era of comics. Very old, very expensive, very hard to find. Okay, the silver era of comics with the 12-cent price tag or the 15-cent price tag. More affordable, but pretty expensive too. Okay? The Bronze Age of comics, 1970 to 1985. That's a good area to start collecting. Also, a good area to start collecting would be the modern era of comics, okay, which would be from 1985 to today. Okay? So those are the 4 eras of comic books. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about what makes a comic book valuable. Okay? There's lots of different things that can make a comic book valuable. The age of the comic book can make it valuable. Like we talked about gold era comics or super old. That can make them very valuable. Also, the condition of the comic book. If it's in good condition, it could be worth a lot of money. If it's beat up, torn, written on, pages torn out, the value goes way down. Okay? So age and condition can be a factor in how valuable your comic would be. Some other things that you might not be aware of that can make your comic book valuable. Okay? Now these things are things like first appearances. Okay? Let me show you an example. I have this king size special Fantastic Four, and it has the first appearance of this supervillain. His name is Annihilus. And this is the first appearance of Annihilus in a comic. Okay? So he makes his first appearance in this comic book. That makes this comic book more valuable. Okay? Also in this comic, Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Girl, they have a baby. And his name is Franklin Richards. So Franklin Richards also makes his first appearance in Fantastic Four number 6. Okay? So first appearances can make comic books very valuable. All right? First editions, first issues can make comic books very valuable as well. Okay? This is Adventure Comics number 376. So that's a big number. Okay? So it's definitely not close to being number 1. Now, if I had Adventure Comics number 1, it would be worth a lot of money. Okay? So the smaller the number, I have Adventure Comics 700 or 376 here, and I have Spider-Man number 77 here. Okay? So 77 is a lot closer to number 1. Okay? So this one is pretty old. So if you have a first issue, let me show you one. Okay? I have the first issue of the Transformers. Notice it has number 1. So this is the first issue of Transformers. This is the first time the Transformers appeared in anything. Before the TV show, before the movies, before the toys were even created, this came out first. So this was the first time that the Transformers were sent out into the public. This is the first time that anybody heard of or read about or saw the Transformers was this comic book. So that's what makes it valuable, being a first issue. And you can see the number 1 right there. So this is Transformers number 1. That's what makes this issue valuable. Okay? Now, another thing that can make a comic book valuable is an iconic cover. Is the cover iconic? Meaning, is it a very popular cover done by a famous artist that people really like? And I do have one of those. Let me show you one. Okay? This is Fantastic Four number 72. Fantastic Four number 72 with the Silver Surfer. Now, this is not the first appearance of the Silver Surfer. If it was, it'd be very valuable. This is like the second or the third appearance of the Silver Surfer. But look at that artwork. He's swooping down, firing his laser. People love this cover. It's an iconic cover, okay? Done by a famous comic book artist. So that's what makes this comic book pretty valuable, okay? So those are some things that make comic books valuable. Is it a first edition? Okay? Or is it close to being a first edition? All right? Does it have a first appearance of a villain? Or does it have a first appearance of a new superhero? That could also make it very valuable. Or does it have an iconic cover? done by a famous comic artist. Okay? So those are the main things that can make a comic book valuable. All right? Now let's talk a little bit about getting your own comic book collection started. All right? Now, what I would advise to do would be to start off with modern era comics. Now, these are comics that you could just go to the store and buy for this, for the issue price on the comic book. Now, you're not going to find comic books with the 12-cent issue price anymore. Okay? Obviously, can't really buy anything with 12 cents. Okay, as far as I know. Okay, so that's where I would start today. I would buy some comic books off the racks, read them, enjoy them, see if you like the story, see if you want to get deeper into comic books. If you do, I would move into Bronze Age comic books, okay? Bronze Age comic books. So those are comic books that were printed between 1970 and 1985. Those are comic books that you could still get for a pretty reasonable price, okay? Now, if you collect Bronze Age comic books and you decide that you want to go even further and get more into the hobby of comic book collecting, then you could go into Silver Age comics, like I'm showing you right here, and I'm going to show you more in a minute, okay? Now, Silver Age comics are super fun to collect, okay? It has iconic covers, iconic superheroes, okay, like Spider-Man, like the Human Torch, like Superman, Superboy, okay? But the comic books start getting expensive. They start getting expensive to buy and hard to find, okay? So if you want to get into Silver Age comics, you have to have a little bit of money to invest, all right? Now, if you want to go all the way for Gold Age comic books, then that's a whole nother deal. And I don't really have a lot of knowledge about Gold Age comic books. I just know that the price tag on them would be 10 cents or less, and they're very hard to find, very valuable, especially when they're in good condition, okay? So let me go ahead and show you some more comic books here. Let's start off with some more Bronze Age comic books, okay? Because if you want to get started in this hobby, you're probably going to start with Modern Age comic books and Bronze Age comic books. The Bronze Age comic books are still affordable. You could get those for a good, cheap price, pretty much. Okay, so let me show you a couple of those. All right. I have Teen Titans, #1, annual, Bronze Age comic. X-Men, okay, with Magneto, okay, supervillain Magneto. Crisis, #1, Crisis issue #1. Indiana Jones, #1, first issue right here. Good book right here. Okay. X Factor #1. This is where the old X-Men came back and they started using their old outfits. X Factor #1. Okay. Alpha Flight #1. Okay. Alpha Flight was similar. These guys were friends with the X-Men. Alpha Flight #1, first issue. Okay. And then I already showed you, this is probably my best Bronze Age comic, Transformers #1, the first appearance of Optimus Prime and the Decepticons and the Autobots. So this was the first time that the Transformers were in print. Okay, before the movies, before the toys, before the TV show. The comic book came out first. Okay, so those are my Bronze Age comic books. Let's take a look at my Silver Age comic books. Okay, these are the ones that I really like. I love the Silver Age of comics. Adventure Comics right here. Amazing Spider-Man, number 77. Here's some more. Okay, I showed you this one. Fantastic Four, The Rise of the Silver Surfer. Fantastic Four, number 72. I showed you this one. Fantastic Four King Size. So this is a larger, thicker comic book. That's why they charge 25 cents. Okay, and this was the first appearance of Annihilus, supervillain. Okay, this is a good comic book. All right. Spider-Man, The Lizard Lives, number 76. Okay. Superboy Comics, Silver Age comic. Adventure Comics, number 364, Silver Age comic. Here's an interesting one. Little Sad Sack. Little Sad Sack. Okay, this was a character that military guys in World War II would read about. Okay, there was a comic that these soldiers would read about, and then after the war, they made a comic book for it. Sad Sack, Little Sad Sack. Submariner. Submariner. Okay, this is the Marvel version of Aquaman, Submariner. Another Adventure Comics, 12 cents. Sad Sack. There he is again, Sad Sack. Poor little Sad Sack. Another Adventure Comics. I got a lot of Adventure Comics. This is DC. Adventure Comics is DC. Superboy. Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. Adventure Comics. All right, another Adventure Comics. Escape of the Fatal Five. Another Submariner. Another Submariner. Okay, like I said, this is the Marvel version of Aquaman. Submariner. He lived and fought underwater. Okay, another Adventure Comics. 12-cent comic from the late 1960s. Superboy. Superboy. Silver Age comic. And last but not least, another Adventure comic. Okay? All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you start thinking about a comic book collection. Okay? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.